John Shannon is the former executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada. His program, 100% Hockey, goes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, although they've been so busy, they're adding extra shows. And he is, of course, the most famous man from Oliver, British Columbia.
What about delivery to Oliver? Delivery to Oliver? How much
We're working on delivery to Oliver. We're working on delivery to Oliver.
Okay, then there'll be orders.
Delivery to Toronto will take some time.
Delivery to Toronto may take some time here.
We got to get those interprovincial tariffs fixed.
That's right.
Figured out, right?
I was going to say that might first require some legislation here from the Liberals or whomever after next month. So yes, we're working on Toronto. John, we'll start with our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. Did the win last night change your confidence level in the Canucks playoff push?
No. You wanted more. I'll tell you what, the one thing that it has done for me is I'm starting to think now that the Vancouver Canucks are one of the most entertaining teams to watch right now. They're on the verge of becoming the cardiac kids, the way they have played, and it's fun to watch. Even the loss in St. Louis was fun to watch with Besser's late goal. Last night, no different. The Quinn Hughes story is amazing. That Demko's return, I just think that the schedule is against them. And it'll be difficult for them to maintain this level, this intensity, while the St. Louis Blues have more games at home, even though they don't have games in hand. I just think the Blues are in a much better spot than the Canucks are. I got to tell you guys, I am loving watching the Canucks play, but I think you're just going to run out of runway.
Yeah, in some cases you want to fast forward the opening 40 minutes, but we did the stat in the opening block, John. The last three third periods.
Oh.
Jersey, 3 ties, 2 lead changes, 4 goals. Rangers, 3 ties, 2 lead changes, 6 goals. St. Louis, 3 ties, 2 lead changes, 5 goals. That's what we've seen in rapid succession from the Vancouver Canucks.
Based on everything, if you had told me that the Canucks won all 3 games, I'd believe you. They played well enough to win all. They played well enough to get 6 points. And then you wonder, and I'm sure that Rick and Adam and the guys are asking this question: is where was this before? Why is this happening just now? Did the players just realize and read the clippings and look at the standings and say, "Oh, we're not a cinch for the playoffs, and we've got to work harder"? They're fun to watch right now, but I just don't think there's time.
Well, not to mention, John, they're missing 3 players who are undoubtedly better than some of the players that are on the roster right now. In Höglander and Pettersson and Hedl, like those players were all on the team a week and a half ago, and they weren't winning hockey games. They are gone, injured, and all of a sudden they're winning hockey games.
It speaks to the value of teamwork. It speaks to the value of hard work. Not that those guys weren't working hard, but when you put into the lineup guys that have to prove every shift that they belong in the National Hockey League, it does mean something. It's one of, in many ways, Blake, it's one of the great things about this game. I think more so than any other of the big 4 professional sports in North America, that your hard work can give you an opportunity to prove you belong, and what a difference it makes. And we saw it again last night.
John, do you still think there's a pathway for Quinn Hughes to the Norris Trophy? He's missed 14 games this year. They've got 11 left. Needless to say, he trails and probably will trail Cale Makar in points at the end of the season. But do you still think there's a pathway based on his value to the Vancouver Canucks of Hughes repeating as Norris Trophy winner?
I think he'll be a finalist, but not only do I think Cale Makar's ahead of him, I think Zach Werenski's ahead of him now too. And for one reason is that people's eyes opened about Werenski during the Four Nations face-off, and people are paying attention, a lot more attention to what the Columbus Blue Jacket defenseman has done. It's funny, last night I tweeted out and showed everybody Quinn's numbers. 31-38, 327 of overtime. Absolutely phenomenal. More than 10 minutes in the third period. And then about 5 people reminded me, said, aren't you watching the Islander game and watching what Werenski did? Werenski was over 33 minutes. He played 13 minutes in the third period, including 3 minutes in overtime, and controlled the play as well. So hard to imagine, but those 2 guys probably deserve a lot more attention. And the other guy that's not getting any attention other than Makar and those 2 is Victor Hedman. And Victor Hedman's had an outstanding season. So I've given you 4 names for the Norris Trophy, and it's going to be sad to think that one of the 4 is not even going to be on the list of finalists.
Well, you can also make the argument that Quinn Hughes deserves Hart Trophy consideration as well. But unfortunately, I don't think he's going to reach that list as well. And I'm not really sure why, because anybody who's cast a glimpse at a Canuck game over the final 50 games here would have seen a Hart Trophy candidate. And I don't know that he needs to win it. But I just don't see any other definition. In fact, I think he might deserve the Hart more than the Norris in some ways here, John.
Yeah, although I'm one of those guys, and you can call me, I'm looking for an excuse, but I'm one of those guys that thinks you have to make the playoffs to win the Hart Trophy. I think that there has to be a resolution of getting to the postseason to really state your value. I am not for 1 minute ever going to knock what Quinn Hughes has done for the Vancouver Canucks. Quite frankly, it's truly amazing the dimension he adds to the hockey club. But and you're right, the value is unbelievable. But if they miss the playoffs, I don't know how you can even consider him for the Hart Trophy, particularly when you look at what Connor Hellebuck has done, who I think should be a Hart Trophy finalist, and what Nate McKinnon has done, and what Leon Draisaitl has done.
Yeah, and I voted last year for the first time in a number of years. I vote again this year, and I apply this elsewhere, so I think it's only fair I'm going to have to apply it on Quinn Hughes as well, but the best ability being availability. Like, if the guy's played all 82 versus somebody's played 67 or whatnot, that can be the deciding factor for me. If I feel
65 is the number that I put in place, Matt.
Yeah.
If a guy gets to 65, then as far as I'm concerned, he's played a full season.
Yep. No, I hear you there. So Demko and Lankinen, could you buy the Cinderella storyline that they can out goalie their way, or they've got the 2 goalies who could potentially steal them enough points to be right there at the end, John?
Oh, I think you can. I was really impressed with Demko last night. And I mean, that save in overtime was spectacular. And Kevin Lankinen, give him some rest. Let's face it, Kevin Lankinen needs rest in order to be back where he should be. So yes, I can buy that. And the one team we're not mentioning is the numbers are much more in favor of Calgary the way they've been playing than they are the Canucks the way they've been playing. So it's not just St. Louis in my mind. It is Calgary as well, who kind of control the Canucks' fate as well as their own.
Do you have a St. Louis theory? What the heck is going on with the Blues? Like, come on, where has this been all season long? Are they really this good?
I think they are. I think that they as we talked about with that, the whole of the team is better than the individuals. I think that they came out of the Four Nations and said, guys, we don't want trades. I mean, Jordan Binnington basically said that after an interview in Los Angeles one night when they swept California. And Doug Armstrong didn't get anything good enough to trade Braden Shen or anybody else for that matter. And this team has really elevated its game. And it's not, Robert Thomas is playing good. Jordan Kyrou, those guys were supposed to. But it's young Bolduc who's played really well. The 2 kids coming out of Edmonton and Broberg and Holloway have more than paid for the money that Doug Armstrong gave them. And they're doing this without Colton Parayko, too, which is absolutely amazing. And so their fourth line with Toropchenko, who is an absolute tank, has become a real story. So it's their depth, Blake, that really has made a difference. And it's not just on Binnington. Joel Hofer, the second goaltender, has come in and stopped the puck a lot more than people thought he would. And so now there's a ton of confidence in both goaltenders in St. Louis. It's a pretty neat story, and the fans there are having a good time as it happens. I mean, that game against the Canucks the other night, that was an absolute circus. It's I know it's a cliche now, and other people have used it, but this is our version of March Madness, and it's a pretty damn good version.
Yeah, I sure hope they bring Gloria back for the playoffs. Blake, you always look at goal differential. You look at teams wild card and below, there are only 2 that are in the plus category. St. Louis at plus 10, and Ottawa has just gotten there at plus 2. You compare that with the Canucks, who are minus 16, Calgary that's minus 21, Utah minus 13. And Blake, you and I watched the game from behind the Blues bench last year. Toropchenko is a monster, just an absolutely huge human being.
And by the way, the Islanders, doesn't he look like Shorzy? You ever seen him up close? No,
I'm going to have to look that up here.
No, next time you go and look at it, the Blues were doing something yesterday, and I looked at this shot, and gosh, he looks like Shorzy.
Yeah. He could fill in on Shorzy. I'm looking at him right now. Yeah, they list him at 6'6", 222. John, the Canucks are in in New York to play the Islanders tomorrow, who suddenly are in a playoff fight themselves. What are they up against? In fact, they're the first team below the bar in the Eastern Conference. What are they up against tomorrow? And I'm almost more interested in the path forward for the Islanders. Saw all those reports about a whole lot of dissension in the ranks there in terms of how Lou handled the trade deadline. But you tell me, what are they up against, and what's the path forward here? Is Lou going to be the GM going forward?
I don't know. That's a good question. And I think if Lou had his way, the answer would be yes. But I think that if Lou does leave, that Lou is probably discussing succession planning more than anything else. That's the type of control that Lou likes to have. Is okay, if you want me out, I'm happy to. No, I'm not happy to move aside, but I'll move aside. But I just want to make sure that they're still doing it my way. So that, to me, would be the biggest question if Lou Lamoriello is asked to move on or move to the president of hockey operations, which he's already the president on that side, I believe. So from that's the one thing. The other thing that has happened on the island is that good goaltending makes you win, and Sorokin has been very good. And then the other guy, Noah Dobson, has really come to play of late too, and he can move the puck. He was in that draft with guys like Evan Bouchard, and the Islanders chose Dobson over Bouchard, and I think they wondered what they were doing at some point when you think about how effective Bouchard's been, particularly in the playoffs. But Noah Dobson is a beast too, and he's a big reason why the Islanders have, I think, become much more successful of late. And then, who's been great, guys? Bo's been great. Bo has been very, very good at key times down this stretch.
Who feels like the right Eastern Conference wildcard spots? Who deserves? Well,
I think
spot?
the two that are there now.
Yeah,
I think Ottawa and Montreal. I mean, I've been extolling the virtues all season long of the best line in hockey in Winnipeg, and Scheifele and Connor and Velarde. Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield and Slavkovsky might actually challenge them at this point. That's how good that line has been. Lane Hudson has really upped his game, and that's why he's in the discussion for the Rookie of the Year. It looks like Caden Gooley's going to come back sooner than later. Josh Anderson has turned his game around in Montreal. They have something magic going on right now at the Bell Center, and it's kind of cool to watch.
Boy, Hockey in Canada would certainly be happy if one of the Flames or Canucks could find their way in with the current menu. If you freeze the Eastern Conference playoff picture the way it is and add a Canuck or Flame wildcard spot, that's a lot of Canadian teams playing playoff hockey. That's a lot of options on a nightly basis there in the spring.
So if they get to 6 games, I don't recall. In my time, 5 teams was a lot. and then you had at one point you had 5 series because they weren't necessarily playing each other. There's a good chance, I think, that we're going to have a Canadian matchup at some point, maybe 2 Canadian matchups in the first round, which would keep, I think, our friends at Rogers very happy because you're also guaranteed a Canadian team to go to the second round too. So from that perspective, you're right. But to have 6 Canadian teams make the playoffs, Blake, in this year, in this political year, would be heartwarming for most of us.
You got Winnipeg versus Calgary or Vancouver.
Yep.
I'm having trouble seeing the other one, John.
Well, Toronto could play Ottawa or Montreal if Toronto wins.
Right, if Toronto beats Florida and they're
Toronto's got to get their act together, to be honest. You know, they in the last 10 games, they've been rather disappointing, but they're only 2 points behind Florida. It's not out of the realm.
Mm-hmm. No tears shed here, John. As for this part of the world and your old stomp or right next door, saw you tweeting. What do you think about Penticton as a WHL city going forward here and the V's graduating up in class?
Well, I'm happy. I'm happy for the people in the South Okanagan. You know, it's not the catchment area is not that big. It's, you know, there's probably only 60,000 people between Penticton and the border, which will be where the audience comes from. It'll be a great rival for Bruce Hamilton and his boys in Kelowna. The biggest challenge for me, and I really do wish the V's the most success. I think it's fantastic. The biggest challenge for me, boys, is that building is so good, but it might be too big. Mm-hmm. And don't laugh at me, because at 5,000 seats in a city that size, I don't know why I'd buy season tickets. You know, and you know as well as I do, the junior hockey teams live on season ticket basis. So if you can have, you're not going to get 5,000 season tickets in Penticton. You're just not. So if you get 1,500 season tickets, great. But then you know, the walk-up will be good too every once in a while. That's going to be the business challenge. From a hockey perspective, it's going to be fantastic. Freddie Harbison has done an amazing job building relationships with the college programs. He has, in fact, I would argue that he might have a better relationship with the NCAA than almost any other general manager / coach in the CHL. They've done such a good job there over the years. But to me, it's the building might be too darn big.
Yeah, I think you're going to need the business community from Peachland, Summerland, Okanagan Falls, Oliver, Soyuz, all of them getting on board in the early going here. Yep. And then, yes, your walk-up crowds. And let's face it, it is a really convenient rink to get to. It's a beautiful place, as we all know.
Boys. It is a great
It is absolutely stunning. That's one of the reasons why I'm so happy about this, because it is truly one of the great facilities in British Columbia. And so now it's going to play in the top junior league. So, and we know there are great hockey fans there, plus the history, right, of all levels of hockey in Penticton over the years. So absolutely delighted for in that regard as well.
The history of senior hockey in our country. You know, one of the pillars of that are how great the Penticton V's were and how they represented our country. So it is kind of cool to see this happen at this level for a place that is quite dear to my heart in Penticton.
Here. Just let's hope Ferraro doesn't see this clip, because he'll be getting a note.
Well, I mean, listen, the guys in Trail, you know, are they in the same time zone? Seriously, they might be in a different time zone.
I think they are not yet in the time. It's right near the timeline, I think.
Where's the documentary on the Penticton V's? Huh? TSN does this big smoke. Where's the documentary on the Penticton V's?
So you'll just, I know we got to go, but you'll have this great. We used to have this great argument between Ferraro and Stevie Tambellini and I about who had the better arena, and of course these two arenas were both built after the Second World War. Both called Memorial Arenas at one point. And those two argue that the arena in Trail is more famous than the one in Penticton. except at the old arena in Penticton, if you walk in the front door, if you turn around and look at the end, you see that World Championship trophy from 1955 when the whole world knew about the Penticton Vs. It was kind of cool. I won that argument for the day, but they still don't believe me.
Well, you win it today because you've upgraded in Penticton to a large extent. Thank you, John. Have a marvelous week. We'll catch up next Tuesday.
Cheers, boys.